and they try and explore whether you have a problem. And if you don't have a problem, and they don't treat a health problem, but they're very, very rational. And the thing is that people think that I often hear slippery slope and all. Portugal, it's 20 years old now, this decriminalisation in Portugal. They have no intention of legalising any. Now, I have my own views on regulation. I say it's a thorny issue, but they are not looking at any Trojan horse. They never did it. They don't. My understanding is they've no plan. But without a shadow of a doubt, on any metric you can think of, that has been a big, big success. And yet, there are people in this country that want to find fault in that. I often wonder what research is looking at. I sometimes, worry about the mental state when they say something doesn't work. So there are people who don't want Portugal to. It's almost as if they want the overdose death rate high and the HIV high. It's almost to prove their point. I can never understand when you argue with how they can look at Portugal and say that that's wrong. And often we here in Ireland is the Irish context. I've often heard people say it wouldn't work different over. Why is it different over here? Why would it be different? We have HIV over here. We have hepatitis. We have plenty of drug overdose. We're in the top 3 in Europe and have consistently so since records began. So the Portuguese approach to this has reduced stigma. And if there's one thing I would say about the Portuguese, it's that very point about reducing stigma, because it's the stigma that stops people getting help when they have a problem. And I think we lose nothing in Ireland by decriminalising tomorrow and even doing it pilot basis. I hate the word pilot, but in other words, an evaluation basis. Evaluate it and see where our figures go. I don't expect to do any of these things. Leave it at that. Don't measure. But we'd have good if we changed it. Our research would be better. We'd have better quality decriminalised drugs tomorrow, and we'd be able to evaluate it. But there seems to be this intransigence. It's almost as if they say possession's not. Oh, it's so true. We're trying to get something, but there's a resistance there, Rayon. I'm not quite sure. I take your point about talking to people and they'll say yes, 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 yes. But we've made no movement on this. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but the law, the 1977 Drug Misuse Act, hasn't changed at all.
There was a proposal in the last government for a new approach, which was a kind of I think to call it 3 strikes and you're out would be a bit unfair, but it still was along those lines. It was better, but still not where we want to go. But at least there was a sense that both health and justice were beginning to move in a certain way. But we're not always just battling against the political system. It's a permanent government of civil servants who can be quite difficult to try and change as well. James, I might turn to you now and just maybe speak about the impact of criminalisation of drug use on young people in particular, and also how you feel maybe that young people can galvanise this and grab this and change Ireland as you have in previous social movements around repeal and marriage equality. There's a number of questions coming in that I'll turn to Anna and Garrett, and again James as well, so you're thinking about them as I speak to James. What's a realistic time table for decriminalisation? These questions are coming in on Facebook, so please please keep sending them in. Is the class gap in politics going to hinder the progress of decriminalisation? I think that's a very important question, and we'll speak to that again. James, just on as a Labour youth representative, how that youth voice and that youth activism can make the difference.
Yeah, well, I think talking about youth activism, it goes without saying that youth activism in the last 20 years, more so the last 10, but definitely the last 20 years, has dramatically changed Ireland, and in many ways for the better. It goes without saying. I have many friends who have been impacted by issues of women's health. It was the Young Voice in Ireland that led the charge on that. As a bisexual man myself, young people in Ireland led the charge on giving me the rights that I so deserve. So there's absolutely no question that it should be, well, not centered, but the young people of Ireland are very much behind this issue. I can't think of a single person among my friends least anyway, who I'd say to and say decriminalisation, and they'd say, oh, heavens no. It's obviously people should be able to do what it is they wish to do with their bodies, essentially, what they choose to ingest, whatever. That's not a thing to say that it should be legalized tomorrow. We're not going that route. But where's the criminal aspect in doing that? To just say that I want to relax in one way, unfortunately, I have to procure it in this manner, but that's a way for some people to relax or to unwind. Of course, I'm talking more so of more cannabis-related material here, but all the same, it still is a way for people to relax and just enjoy themselves. And coming at it from a moralistic point of view, there's already a way for people to relax and enjoy themselves, people say, with alcohol. But we never seem to equate the two things as being one is bad and one is good. It's always that seems to be a black and white issue on the two of them. I don't see why that has to be the case at all whatsoever. And in terms of galvanizing youth support, there definitely is groundswell. There was a march there in the Phoenix Park about 2 months back on this issue. Now, I didn't partake in the march. I didn't know it was happening, but it was indeed on the, again, it was a legalization issue, but it was on the prohibition of cannabis in Ireland. And there was a hefty large crowd. I only saw it by passing, by happenstance, but it does show that there is momentum behind youth voices to get this issue solved. Decriminalisation, I think, is the best way forward because it does introduce it as, again, Garrett said you hate the term pilot, but it is a way of showing that the sky doesn't fall if you approach this model or if you go forward with an issue like this. And I just think that in some of the statistics that the experience and expertise colleagues here stated, with Anna's figure there of 250,000 convictions, doing the maths, that is 1 in 20 people in Ireland that have suffered a conviction of this. That is just mind-boggling. I mean, that's going up to a person on the streets, and your chances are pretty likely of finding that. And the other thing that comes into that is how much time of Garda resources is wasted on that, and how could it be?
Well, that's the big question, James. Because I mean, like, if you're a young person, you're 20, 21 years of age, you get a conviction for possession, that has a heavy influence on your life into the
Absolutely.
future. You're also going to have a more negative view of the state and arms of the state, if you like. You know, guards, criminal justice system for the rest of your life. You're going to have a pretty and you're probably going to be pretty, easy fodder for the parallel criminal economy. But yeah, the point is that if the criminal justice system is spending all this time criminalizing people for possession for personal use, things that they use or things that they're addicted to, that's a lot of time, money, and energy not spent on the trade, on the bigger issue.
Yeah, 100% agreed. It seems to be a waste, and it's not tackling the issue. It seems to be trying to tackle the crime, but it's not tackling crime. It's tackling the user, and that's the big issue here. It's not people are under the law, they're committing something criminal. But as we've discussed, there's nothing criminal about consumption, essentially, or we deem what is illegal consumption and what isn't somewhat arbitrarily, I would argue, in any case.
And so it's a very moralistic approach, because if it was working, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I suppose. But it certainly isn't working. Some of the questions coming in, and a realistic timetable for decriminalisation. Do you want to give a sense of
interesting? I know Garrett is very pessimistic, understandably. I suppose part of my sense is, I think my sense is, in terms of the public argument, that argument on not criminalising people for possession for personal use, I think in the general public that argument is largely won. I think a significant majority of people in the general public, when they're, I think it often sounds like people are against it, but normally they are not actually talking about possession or decriminalising the user when they're not, because as we talked about this, the issues get confused. People are addressing the issue of regulation, legalization, which is another argument. I think that the sense is that there's quite a small number of people in this country who would actively want now to be criminalising someone because they possess drugs for their own use. As Garrett said, it's a bit harder when you're trying to overturn something that's there. But I think if you ask people, do you think that's a good policy? I think that a significant majority would say no. And I think in terms of the policy side of it and then the political side of it, I think there's a partial acceptance of that point. There's a partial accept, like to say our drug strategy is health-led, is an acknowledgement really that these arguments can be countered. And so it's a partial step. And what you were referring to there, Aon, the health diversion approach, which was launched over 2 years ago, and I think it was August 2019, that's kind of seen as a first step, because it's without changing the law, and as Gareth said, it's not decriminalisation because the law has not been changed, but under an administrative kind of a regulation. And it's to be piloted now. It was due to be piloted in 2020 to 2021, and it wasn't out. To be fair, obviously COVID happened, so that had an impact. We have to allow for that. But there is, just I saw it in the budget actually there today, there's an amount to be budget for 2022 to do the pilot. I think it's going to be piloted in 5 different areas. And as you said, like it's very minimal. It's basically first time you're caught in possession for a person, you're referred. Now it's a mandatory referral, which I think is different to Porto. It's a mandatory referral to the HSE for an assessment. Second time you're caught, can be referred, or you can be given an adult caution. Third time you're back to being a criminal. Now, when that program was announced, we were actually very critical of it, because first of all, like the principle, either it's a criminal offence or it's not a criminal, not a criminal offence, kind of make your minds up. But the other reason the real big issue with it, and the question about class is interesting. The really big issue is when you think of people who have the most serious addiction problems, the most serious drug problems, as people say, like they will be caught.
Lots of times.
Somebody said more than not only twice, maybe in 1 week, twice in 1 day. That health version approach does nothing for people with serious drug problems, because they are likely to be found in possession much more often. What it does do, and everyone is glad about this, it helps people, like the case a couple of years ago with the guy in the States. Remember that was about to be thrown out of country because he had 2 cannabis possessions from 30 years before or something like that. So it will help people in that situation, which is good. Everybody's happy with that. But so the health diversion approach as it stands is incredibly limited. But it is a first step in the state, the Irish state, saying, well, we need to move away from criminalising people's possession. And I think just trying to use that, and again, I think too with politicians, I think there's quite a number of politicians across different parties who are looking at the Citizens' Assembly, and who are kind of saying, look, this is maybe an opportunity to move it forward. Because I think for us, looking at the Citizens' Assembly, and James kind of referred to, the big difference with Citizens' Assembly is, and you were saying this, Gareth, it's evidence-based. The Citizens' Assembly, and that's why you've seen they made such a huge difference around like issues that Irish society thought they would never get to deal with. Because a lot of the time, the issues politicians, not all politicians are scared of. And two, the major issues that we had to deal with, major social issues, the Citizens' Assembly nailed it because they looked at the evidence. And it was removed from that kind of, people bringing their own agendas to it. And I think that would be the big opportunity of a Citizens' Assembly to be able to look at this. And I think just given that, I think one of the things I'm just thinking of, because the timetable for the health version approach, and again, as Gareth was talking about evaluation, it's built into that it would run, the pilot would run for a year and then there'd be an evaluation. I think we can make an argument now, and I think the public mood would be with it, that, okay, kind of lost well over a year. We've lost nearly 2 years. Like if it was launched August 29th, if that had happened for the year as was intended, been evaluated, we'd now have the findings of that and we'd be able to move. But I think we can argue, well, if the Citizens' Assembly is happening next year, which we hope it is, we should just fast forward that process and start the process of saying, let's prepare the legislation for the next stage. Let's not wait till we run this pilot and then evaluate. Let's allow for the fact that time has moved on. I think people have moved on.
Because there's mounting evidence, one, that what we're doing at the moment is a catastrophic failure. It's an expensive mess, and it's hurting people. And people are still dying in numbers greater than anywhere else in Europe. Third, fourth highest overdose rate. And it's socially divisive. So that's the first, pile of evidence that we can show that currently, even if you weren't to go with decriminalisation or weren't to be convinced about a different view, you have to defend this, and you can't defend it. And then secondly, we show the evidence as to why decriminalisation will be a better approach. The question about the class gap is interesting because, and I often refer to this, and by the way, Garrett, there's a question for you on the reduction of fear of becoming a criminal. Did that help the issue in Portugal? So that's your question coming next, just to chew on that while I make this last point about the class issue. When I was Minister for Drugs, if there was a student who had an overdose, a fatal overdose, there would be wall-to-wall coverage of it, of a tragedy, and justifiably of a tragedy, and there'd be a call for action, and there'd be a lot of sort of talk about this person's future that was robbed, and all that narrative, absolutely justifiable. But if somebody was found to have died of a heroin overdose in a public toilet, nobody would seek your comment, because the value on the two lives is totally different. Middle Ireland values the life of the student that was lost and the future that person may have had. Middle Ireland does not value the life of the heroin addict. And we all know this because we call the heroin addict names. Now, we've moved from a position where, we all grew up in Ireland where there were kind of words used about the traveling community that you would never use anymore in public discourse, or words used about, African-Irish people or people with disabilities or gay people that you would never use now, and absolutely justifiably. But you can use degrading terminology about people in addiction any day, any hour of the day or night, on any radio station, any television program, and get away with it, because we have devalued that life, because that person is viewed to us to be valueless, to be worthless. And why would we change policy to benefit a life that we don't value? And I think that is a large part of what we're actually trying to achieve here, because a lot of our advocacy is for people that generally people don't like. They don't like looking at them, they don't like talking to them, and they wish they'd just go away.
I think, Portugal, I think it's one of the key points about what they did in Portugal when they decriminalised. They didn't just change the how people were treated outside. Part of their vision of services, they looked at employment opportunities, looked at housing. They had subsidised housing. They had subsidies for employers to take on. They recognised this is a broader social issue. So decriminalisation is not just about changing that particular piece. It's about recognising that there's a whole load of other factors, and we keep saying that as well. When we're going hopefully down the road of removing criminal sanctions, let's not look at it as that on its own is going to make a huge difference. Yes, it's important in itself, hugely important for the message it conveys about how we see people, but it needs to be accompanied by the kind of supports that they brought in Portugal. I know over the years, maybe between recession and one thing, they couldn't maintain the levels of funding, but they recognised the principle absolutely that it's not just enough to make a legal change. We've got to look at the other supports that people need, and I think that's a crucial part of what we do.
The direct question to you, Garrett, the reduction of fear in becoming a criminal, did that help the issue in Portugal?
I don't really understand the question, actually.
I suppose that the reduction of stigma, did that help when people were engaging with the system, that they were no longer afraid of criminalisation? Does that make somebody more likely to engage?
Absolutely, because it becomes the norm, doesn't it? Yeah. It becomes the norm. It becomes the done thing to do. Nobody has to hide anymore. And particularly, you mentioned heroin. I mean, we could have a whole discussion because heroin is separated out from the other drugs. I'd probably put in the context now, and Anna will back me up with this, crack cocaine. Yeah. They're demonized. They're completely seen as scruffy, horrible drugs taken by horrible people who live in horrible places. And I think what's happened there, I mean, there's a whole social inequality thing that really is the underbelly of this, and it's fairly repugnant. But I think one of the things we've failed to do, actually, our drugs education has been deplorable. We've made people believe that heroin is evil and demonized and be horrible. And yet the same drug, heroin, is used in hospitals if you go and break your leg. It's the same drug. It's not demonized. It's lionized in hospitals. It's looked at as a completely different thing. But on the street, in those alleyways, and you did those walks around with Tony Duffin back in the day, and you would have seen what this means.
I did one very recently. I did one about 2 months ago, and it took us 5 minutes to find a couple behind a dumpster.
Yeah, and I see it every week. I do a clinic actually near Christchurch Cathedral, and there's a little one of those old car parks, kind of like wasteland, and constantly there are people there. It is a very ugly scene. But I have to say, among them, I must say, there's a great community among them. They help each other. A lot of people don't. I mean, I went to Vancouver about 3 years ago, and I went out to the Lower East Side in Vancouver, and I saw what they did down there. And a lot of people would say, it's like Mad Max. But the one thing that was really, really struck me over there is the sense of community, the sense of looking after each other. Somebody was in peril, they would help each other. But we shouldn't be in a position where there are people in, back alleyways injecting each other with needles that maybe they're sharing. It's wrong. It's wrong on every level. And as you say, and Anna's, and I can't say this enough, the social inequality side of that is at the core of this. That wouldn't happen, doesn't happen in Foxrock and Bullbridge. That happens in the south and north inner city and in other places that have been left behind. Simple as that. And unless we sort out that, we're in real trouble, I have to say.
James, you might speak to, Scar spoke of education there, the type of drug education that you received as a young person, the type of knowledge base of drugs amongst your peers, attitude towards drugs, amongst your colleagues and your friends.
Yeah, I could say the drug education that I received in, primary and secondary school was very much a stay the hell away from all sorts, which you can. And I remember, of course, taking the pledge during my my confirmation to abstain from drugs, where there's a distinct moral judgment there. But no, so it's night and day in comparison to what you can pick up from, as kind of Garrett said, like communities of drug users compared to what's kind of fed down from top down as opposed to bottom up in terms of.
Well, can I interject there, Jay? I remember talking to a group of young people once about this whole issue. And they said that they would believe what they were being told if their parents' generation stopped lying to them. Because they hear all this messaging about how damaging alcohol is, yet they've observed their parents' generation abusing alcohol. They've got all these messaging in school about how drugs are dangerous, and we're not here to suggest that they aren't. But they know that their parents' generation were heavy cocaine users, at some point or other. Certainly, during the Celtic Tiger years, it was quite prevalent, and I understand it's
still prevalent now, or it's back. Yeah, exactly.
So, our young people you're just not going to believe a message that is clearly a lie. We have passed alcoholism down for the last whatever number 100 years, and yet we pretend to young people that we have lived lives that are beyond reproach. And that it's young people are the issue, but we have passed this down. So is that part of the problem? Is that we don't treat young people with any level of respect whatsoever? We tell them lies. We tell them that they just say no. Which I think, in fairness to educators, they would say they've moved well past just say no. But is that the issue? It's just a basic lack of trust and respect to the message, because the message is just dishonest.
I would think so. And the other thing as well is, at least anecdotally, because that's honest speaking from a youth perspective here, but it's when it comes down to the taking of certain drugs, again, it comes down to some are fine, some are okay, and some are absolutely no, get them out of the house, that kind of idea. It never comes to a conversation of why X drug is bad and why X drug is okay. It's always an unwritten rule that you have to figure out. And if, unfortunately for some people, you figure it out the wrong way, and the consequences can be, devastating in some cases. So there's no, the education from, say, the state is insufficient, and the education from parents is, non-existent, because they don't know how to educate. They've just been told to stay away from it. And that's what I think the issue comes down to. So young people don't know who to trust as such, which is why they turn to enter drug community.
So they're getting their knowledge from people who are trying to make money out of them. Which is the dealer.
Yeah. They're getting knowledge from the dealer, of course, but also there are some more informed dealers, I suppose, or drug users, which isn't the way it should be, of course, but they're not going to medical professionals, let's put it that way.
This would be a great campaign. I think in the UK 20 years ago, if you don't talk to your kids about sex, somebody else will. And I think we could say the same thing about drugs. You don't talk to your kids about drugs, somebody else will. But it has to be honest. But in terms of alcohol, I mean, you make a very good point. Alcohol consumption and difficulties relating to alcohol. I think they cost the exchequer about $3 billion a year. We have 100 people a year die of fatal overdoses of alcohol. Not people who get drunk and fall in front of something. People who drink so much that they die. 100 a year, about 2 a week. People don't like talking about that. They don't like that. Alcohol is different in many people's minds. So it's 7:45, and it's a time to wrap up. But Anna, I suppose you seem to be much more positive than Gareth. So Gareth's going to have to sort of, smile himself up a bit to try and give anybody watching this a level of positivity where we can go to from here. So look, what do we have? We have a government who has had the foresight to at least open the conversation. I think it's the responsibility of us to force that conversation to take place. There can be many pledges for citizens' assemblies to happen, and sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't, or sometimes another one is more important, or whatever. And COVID has been a great excuse as to why certain things can't take place. But at least we have that. At least we have a government that's willing to take on the conversation. I believe there's enough goodwill within the political system, whatever about the permanent government, which I think would be very resistant to any change. Very resistant. I think the Department of Justice would be massively resistant. I think the Department of Health would be massively resistant. And also they are quite keen, or they're very knowledgeable about where power is in Irish society, and it isn't with the drug. Let's be frank about it. But having said all that, I would like to be positive, and I would like to feel that we can begin this conversation again. The reason why I'm promoting these badges, and anybody who wants them, just send me an email and I'll send one out, which just says Dcrim, is because, and I see, James, you're wearing one. I try to wear one as often as I can, and the number of conversations it sparks is actually quite interesting. People say, "What, Dcrim? What's that?" And I say, "Well, it's Dcrim." And we begin talking about what does it mean it's drugs, or it's the drug user. And I rarely come away from those conversations with anybody who is vehemently against what I'm trying to say. They enjoy the conversation, and inevitably they always have somebody in their lives who they think of. And this is the remarkable thing about this debate. But they feel they can't talk openly about it. It's something that's beneath the surface, and maybe they haven't spoken about it openly before. So what is our opportunity, Anna, over the next period of time? What do we have to seize? How do we push this to the next stage?
I suppose it is back to that thing about the evidence. As I was saying, like our experience, what we learned from real life experience when we went to look at the evidence backed us up completely. If you look at it now, all of the international bodies, all of the UN bodies, even the UN Office of Drugs and Crime is now saying, yes, decriminalisation, is something that should be looked at, and they're probably the most I suppose, responsible for all the international drug control. So all of the UN bodies right across say, yes, no, decriminalisation should be part of.
And even at home, I mean, the former assistant commissioner, Garda Commissioner Jack Nolan has come out in favour of decriminalisation. Anybody involved, many people involved in the drug lobby sphere are in favour of decriminalisation. Peter McVerry is in favour of decriminalisation. The USI are in favour of decriminalisation. It almost appears that anybody who analyses it change their view or come to this view.
Because I think the evidence is really strong. And again, it's partly another thing we've been involved in, as you know, is the anti-stigma campaign and rolling that out. And it's absolutely powerful when people, because part of the anti-stigma campaign is again it's hearing voices of people, and people are not asked to identify if they're current, former, they're people who have experience of drug-related stigma. Nobody needs to know whether they're former, past. And the power of those voices is amazing, because people see in front of them these really articulate, intelligent people, and they're kind of, it's like I'm just thinking of when we did the Red Sea study a few years back around this stigma campaign. One of the findings was that I think there was a question about would you be happy to live next door to the phrase drug use that was probably used in that, and I think it was like nearly 60% of people said no, they wouldn't. And like when you think about that, and it's back to the points that
everybody does live beside a drug user.
How do you, if you live in an ordinary estate where people are on a Saturday night in their own home, whatever they're using cocaine, you're not even going to know. You're not going to know what people think of when people use the words drug user or some person who uses drugs. They think of the person who is most extreme difficulty that they will see on the street. And again, as I say, the drug is not the problem for those people. For those people, the drug is something they use to help them cope. I remember one of the projects that really insightful thing they said was, you know, we're told kind of by the HSE, or we're given the message, well, really about, you know, people need to be helped to reduce or stop their drug use. That as soon as that people start doing that, that's when they have to face what's going on in their lives, and that's when we need our help. And I think we really need to start seeing it that way. But to be back to the thing about being positive, I suppose the point I'm trying to make is all of the evidence we have, all of it, whether it's the experiential stuff we have, whether it's the international evidence, all of the data supports the fact that there are hugely negative effects from criminalising people's possession of drugs. And there are no positive effects. It's as simple as that. Not a panacea, not going to solve the problem, but it is a negative policy. All of the evidence shows that. Garrett made the point about, you know, when that committee met, in the end, really, the evidence didn't guide the findings of that committee. And I think just our experience of how the citizens' assemblies work is that they do tend to be very guided by evidence. And I suppose the results show in that they were able to take some of the most kind of contentious issues they had to deal with. And I think everybody was surprised by the extent to which they were able to make recommendations, which then it was much easier for government to move ahead with and to say to people, look, we have this from a citizen. So I just my sense is that is a really, really important opportunity, because that is where you get past all the blocks that you talked about, Aon, that are there within the kind of permanent government. That is an opportunity to kind of move outside of that and bring the evidence and the argument into a different arena. And that where there won't be the same kind of maybe agendas. And I think that's a huge opportunity. And I do actually think that public, as you say, when you say the vast majority of people, if you put it on, do you think it makes sense that we make criminals out of people who have drugs in their possession for their own personal use? The vast majority of people. And so I just think it's time if we can look at that. Getting a commitment to that citizens' assembly happening next year, and in government parties there were people who would definitely support that. I think it should happen next year. I think it should happen in 2022, and I think it should happen. Yeah, I optimistic that if it is like the other process, or if it is an evidence-based process in the same way as previous high-profile ones, then the evidence only points one direction.
Yeah. Just before I give Garrett the last word, and he's going to finish on a huge positive note. I know he is. I just want to pay tribute to Anna, if I might, because I remember being a government backbencher in, I think it was 2012, maybe 2013, and Anna decided to pick off a number of backbenchers and talk to us about decriminalisation. And I remember going down to your offices there in Fairview. And I remember having I think I got a cup of tea. I may have gotten a biscuit, I can't remember. And then, lo and behold, 2 years later, I was minister in charge of the National Drug Strategy. And I was able to bring that conversation to maybe a higher platform. But I think it was that individual lobbying that you did with people from all political persuasions, making the argument, which is what was quite powerful, and starting the conversation. I actually vividly remember going on the Brendan O'Connor show or something on Saturday night. There's going to be a reasonably big interview about drug policy. I remember ringing you in the car going, just let me get this line again correctly. Because some of this for politicians is about learning the language, about learning a dialect. What does it mean? And if you're asking a politician to step into a space, you have to weaponize them with the terminology and the language so that they feel as if they, this issue is theirs and they have ownership of it and they can advocate for it, because we'll all get criticized from people who have an opposing view, or people who are yet to be convinced. So you have to have the self-confidence to be able to make the case. So you empowered me, Anna, with that terminology, with that language, and with that humanity. So I think that's our responsibility. Whereas it can be very tempting sometimes to lose faith in the political system and be exasperated. I think that's the individual conversation that's going to change it. Garrett, end this on a positive note as to how this would change Ireland if we were to be successful. If the Citizens' Assembly were to go with this, and we did in Ireland what happened in Portugal, how would it change lives here? How would it save lives?
It would immeasurably change lives. It would make an issue that is hidden behind the wall come out in front of the wall. It would make people be able to talk about their drug use. It would allow people not to be in fear of changing their life with a criminal record. It would have the quality of the discussions would be of a far more enlightened quality. It would, without a shadow of a doubt, reduce drug overdose deaths as it has in Portugal. It would. Anna has said it. I can't see any negatives to it. I would just say one point though, because I've been very struck by the amount of effort you've put into this, and you mightn't see this because you've done a lot of work on this. And it's very natural to you now. But the one thing you did on this, and I'm pretty sure there was a time, in the past 10, 15 years ago where you either didn't think about the issue or maybe you were the other way on the issue. But the one thing you did was you spent an awful lot of time educating yourself. You listened to people with experience like Anna. You went to Anna Liffey. You did the hard yards, but you really educated yourself. And the one thing that strikes me that a lot of the hardest views on drug policy and drugs in general are from the people who are the most ignorant. People that don't read anything sometimes have the hardest views. But when you question them on the basics of drug policy and drugs, they're found wanting. And the politicians are central to this. They really need to educate themselves. And because if they don't educate themselves, like that point that Anna made about the committee we talked about, the Justice Sheehan, there are only two possibilities in relation to what they did. I don't know what they did behind doors. So the two possibilities, and there were only two, is they either don't know how to read evidence or they ignore the evidence. Because the evidence is very clear. Anna said, so they either did one or the other. Because they couldn't have read evidence that would have brought them in a different direction, because the evidence isn't there. And this worries me. And they need to, that group, I don't know what the status that group is now, whether it's all over now. But what they deliberated on and what they concluded was not faithful to the international evidence. And I think that has to be called out. This is not good enough to allow a group to be put together to see what changes we need to make to drug policy, and essentially we ain't making very much of a change. I think people now have to be accountable for the decisions. I really do. Look, we could have a conversation on that in general in Irish society about accountability, but in that they got it wrong, totally wrong, and they try to justify it.
Look, thanks so much for the conversation tonight. Myself and James will be campaigning on this from a Labour Party perspective between now and the end of the year to try and get it in, particularly around college campuses, talking to young people, trying to get the badges out, trying to get people to start the conversation, trying to get people educated up to maybe be self-confident enough to have the conversation. We want to have more of these chats, and we welcome questions. We welcome people with fears or with insecurities around it, what it actually means. I have these debates every day. We want to know what's the difference between decriminalisation of drugs and decriminalisation of the drug user, and what's the difference between decriminalisation and legalisation. What we're saying is that, look, if we were to follow the Portuguese model, drugs would be as illegal as they ever were. Trading them would be as illegal as they ever were, as it ever was. Selling them would be as illegal as it ever was. But the act of taking something would not be a criminal act. Now, there would be an intervention as there is in Portugal. There'd be, an intervention, but there wouldn't be an intervention which is based on criminality, which is based on talking to a judge or talking to a solicitor or talking to a guard. It would be based on where you are and interacting with a nurse or a counsellor or a doctor, because this isn't an issue of criminality. And often people take or get sucked into addiction because of pain or trauma in their own lives. And that's something that we need to address as a country. Pain, trauma, what's happened to people. And as Anna's quite rightly says, it's not the drug, it's the pain. And we've seen this so many times in people who have, overcome their addiction, then they have to go right back to the issue that caused them pain in the first place. And that is the challenge. And we need to be big enough as a society now, coming out of COVID, which has exposed a lot of fault lines in our society, and be self-confident enough and honest enough with ourselves. Say, look, we can't continue with this. We can't continue. So thanks everybody for your attention and your attendance. Gareth is on Twitter at addictions. What's your Twitter handle?
Good point, actually. At PMC Addictions. At
PMC Addiction. Drugs Crisis is the Twitter handle for Citywide. Labour Youth is the Twitter handle for what Labour Youth do. I'm at Aon and Reardon. And if you want a badge, or your group wants a badge, or your organisation wants a badge, drop us an email and we'll send them to you, and we'll try and get this conversation going to get the Citizen Assembly up and running, and to get decriminalisation of the drug user on the agenda, and then hopefully achieved so we can save lives. Thanks very much, everybody, for being with us this evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
And so there we go, guys. I'm not too sure what people might have made of that talk. See a few comments coming in there, and I kind of agree with those sentiments that these laid on right on, having being a minister in charge of drug policy once upon a time, had an opportunity at the time, to do more on this issue, but maybe, maybe there's a little pun in this, but maybe he was a bit too green on the issue at the time. Only learning as he went, hearing from people like Anna Quigley from Citywide there. I've chatted with Anna Quigley in the past. We done a special broadcast there for the Support Don't Punish, myself and Cassidus Drugas. But yeah, she's well versed on this issue. And we're right up there. I'm gutted that my comments there in the past. Sorry, I'll close that down. Yeah, I'm gutted that my comments there in the past have gotten me blocked from the the Labour Party's page, unfortunately. But yeah, that was when I was thinking about it. I was like, geez, why am I blocked from Labour Party's page? But then when I was thinking about it, it was Joan Burton. Joan Burton is the reason I will never ever again support that Labour Party. Unfortunately, just the stuff that she done at the time was just tainted the party. I was already tainted enough, but she really just sealed the deal, bringing those protesters to the court there that time. Just gonna pop this up there on screen for you guys. If anybody wants to call in, or I see our comments coming in there as well. But yeah, Billy Bonds, strong feelings there from Billy Bonds. He says a pile of wank. And I definitely don't disagree with you there. Again, a lot of talk. The time for talking is kind of pretty much over really at this point. They even said it on that talk there really. By and large, the public are already in agreement on this issue that yes, the drug user should be decriminalized. And then if I was able to ask questions there, I was like, if you're successful in your campaign on decriminalizing the drug user, is the logical next step in terms of harm reduction providing a safe supply of drugs? Because that's a big risk there to drug users, is if they're buying their drugs on the streets from organized crime gangs. There's the problems with adulterated products, dirty cocaine and dirty heroin. It's not good. Again, Garrett actually, I think it was Garrett brought up Vancouver. He talked about Vancouver when he was spending some time over there. And I'll pop him up on screen there now, 1 second. Just have to drag this one. Boom, there we go. This is from Vancouver. We're in Vancouver, and I've brought this up in the past. We're in Vancouver. They've been giving out free drugs. This is the headline: free heroin, cocaine, and meth distributed in front of the police department And that was done by the Drug Liberation Front, Drug Users Liberation Front in BC. This is the kind of stuff we need to be happening now. You know, there's people out there dying on the streets, and the likes of Aaron, and he's like, oh, I'll send out some badges. I'll put Dcrim on the badge, and that'll be great. Like, how is Dcrim on a badge going to be of any real use to a person who's getting dirty heroin out there in the street, you know? Caller coming in. Hello, welcome to Martin's World. Who do we have?
Hey, buddy, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. 1 second, I'll just fix it on the other side.
Sorry, I'm probably counting the head off you.
Boom, there we go. I think we're all better now. Who do we have, did you say?
Hey, Martin, it's Papa Gummy Bear here.
What's happening, Papa Gummy Bear? Yeah, you were thinking it on as just trying to buy some votes there in supporting this, yeah?
You know what, man? He was the Minister for Health for a good few years. I remember when he was Minister for Health. And, you know, he had an opportunity to do it. He didn't do it. You know, the same issue still goes on now. He can still jump on. He can go on YouTube with his little 4 fucking floating heads on a screen talking about it. Oh, we need to raise these conversations. This prick has been having conversations for 10 years about this same topic. But maybe he was green about it, like you said, great pun. You know, but in 10 years, and this is the best he can do, is a fucking YouTube video with 4 shams floating around on the screen when he was in the office that could have done it. Martin, I'd just like to say, if there's any listeners out there, what viewers out there feeling pissed off by this, reach out to me. Let's blow up the fucking doll. No, I'm joking. But really, I mean, I think, you know, the time for talking this stuff, I don't see where this can go at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely think we need more action here. You know, we've done a lot of talking. Like, again,
like a weekly protest or something, you know?
Definitely. You know, I was even just pointing out the Drug Users Liberation Front's efforts over in Vancouver, where they're giving out like free cocaine and free heroin, like, and it's lab tested. And that's why they're doing it. They're trying to overcome the epidemic over there because of the amount of people dying because of contaminated drug supplies. And here we are just talking about decriminalising the drug user, but they still have to get their drugs from the organised crime gangs. We won't talk about that.
Get free drugs. You can only get free drugs here in the Dáil bar, man, to elected, you know.
Yeah, like these baby steps that they're trying to take. Like we can look to other places where they've taken these baby steps, and we need to combine them all in and take one giant leap forward now. Not only decriminalise the drug user, but regulate the drug supply. Or is that just too radical? Like,
it's insane. It's like that could be too radical at this stage. After all the other countries that we usually copy stuff off after a couple of years, they catch it on here when they realise, you know, that it works, there's money on it. And they're having great success with all of this stuff. Decriminalise, supervise, safe use, safe supply, and here we are with our heads in the sand. Or, well, we aren't. You know, you and I aren't. Your viewers aren't. A lot of the
Frank
people
Fian
aren't.
is.
The people at the top. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I don't see, no, I don't get it. I seriously feel like burning down the fucking doll at this stage. And I have to qualify that and say it's a joke.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody listening out there, but, you know, it's gone too fast, you know.
Yeah, well, we had a Éadán or Éadán in the past down in UCC in Cork with the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and literally what we just witnessed there from Éadán, or anyway, outside of what the other speakers contributed, it seems like not much has changed from Éadán in terms of what he's presenting. Like he's got no new information. Garrett and Anna brought the extra information there. But really, in terms of like what Éadán said there, it wasn't much different to what he said back in, I think it was 2016, we had him in the Hayfield Manor in Cork. And it was great, you know, and I have to give credit where credit's due, because he was the most outspoken person within the Irish government at the time in favour of decriminalising the drug user. But he was talking about it, but he wasn't very pressing about it. You know, he was the guy in charge of the national drug strategy, but what was his real impact? Is he highlighting that the minister has actually no power there? That it is all the public servants?
That's another, you're so right, man. That's another conversation, another question we need to be looking at here. Like you said, there's no accountability.
Yeah.
If he's the minister, what good is he? He can't do his job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot more questions than answers come from this, really, isn't there?
Unfortunately, these questions can only be answered by burning down the dome. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, man. No, but yeah, look, man, fucking fair play to you for posting it up. I didn't even know that was happening tonight. I got home from work, etc. Took it on.
Yeah, I was only I only learned about it earlier today myself. Actually, it wasn't very well broadcast. So I just said, "Feck it, I get it up there."
Yeah, it would have been okay. Right, look, well, fair play. I just wanted to ring in because it's just
Well, thanks very much, Papa Gummy Bear. I really appreciate your contribution.
Hey, thanks for everything, man. I'm going to tune back into the show. Peace out.
Good luck, man. Stay blessed.
Okay.
Lovely stuff. Thanks very much there to Papa Gummy Bear taking the time out to give us a call there this evening. But yeah, there is a lot more questions that have come out of this rather than answers. Because it's true. He was the minister in charge of our drug policy. He was in the position that we kind of give Frank Feehan such stick over. And at the time, he supported the idea. Like he was open to it. He came and talked with us, the Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and he talked about the decriminalisation of the drug user. But unfortunately, here we are, like 5 years later, and he's still only talking about it. He had the power at the time. Now he's not even in power anymore. But he's still talking about this thing that he'd once had power. Apparently, like from my perspective, it seems like he had power to do something about it. But did he? Like, is that what we're kind of realizing? Like, it's been highlighted here. Like, Stephen Donnelly has no power to do something. Like, Frank Feehan has no power to do something, and it's actually the public servants, the guys in the likes of the HPRA and the HC and things like that. Yeah, it's a strange one, really. How is Ireland actually run? Who has the power to actually do anything about this? Because something really needs to be done. Crash Wants You says, it's an effing sham. Like, the judges need to all be reefed out at this point. From letting pedos off and giving domestic abusers light sentences and walloping people for grams of a plant. Yeah. So true, like a serious overhaul of the justice system needed here in Ireland. This is, again, just scrolling down through this on the screen. Just, again, just to bring it up, this is what the guy's done. They had a little box here and they gave free heroin out to heroin users, and they also had free cocaine there as well. Obviously, they weren't just handing this out to just anybody. People obviously had to be over a certain age, and yeah, at least what they were getting isn't what they were going to be getting if they went and bought it off of the street, because your heroin on the street, it could contain fentanyl, and I don't know if you know, but fentanyl compared to heroin, like if you were to have a dose of heroin versus a dose of fentanyl on a table in front of you, the fentanyl dose will be about 100 times smaller than the heroin. But if you're taking the heroin thinking taking fentanyl thinking it's heroin, well, you're going to have an extreme overdose, because like you look at the size, the volume, there's 100 times the difference there. Well, that's not good for the end user if you get that contaminated drug supply. And like that was another thing that was brought up throughout the talk, how we value lives and communities, because like if a person dies in an alleyway with a needle in their arm, you don't really hear too much about it. It might make the news, body found, and that's kind of it. You don't really hear too much. But like, say the likes of Independence Festival or one of the other ones, when you've like a working class, middle class family's kid who dies of an MDMA overdose or of a contaminated batch of drugs of some sort. And that kind of makes the news there for a bit longer, and there's more of a reaction there. The likes of, say, Katie French at the time, who died, I believe that was the cocaine overdose. I think she had went into cardiac arrest. I think it was. She had issues with her heart. But the big thing there, the cops, like they were like storming prowling the streets trying to find Katie French's drug dealer. But in reality, like the real problem was always being for all of these people, the people we make noise about and the people we don't, the people whose lives we don't really value. Prohibition of drugs, that was always the problem. The likes of Katie French, she would probably still be with us if her drug of choice, cocaine, was legal and regulated, because she probably wouldn't have to hide the fact that she was using it. and she might have been a bit more aware as to how much she was using then, and also the dangers of the contaminants within the substance then as well, or do you know, not be exposed to them because you're getting a regulated fucking product. We even talked there about the late Jerry Ryan, the RT radio presenter. He, you know, as a top dog as he was in Ireland, he still wasn't even immune to the effects of contaminated drugs in from the streets, because it was found that he had was it a sheep dewormer. Like we all hear about ivermectin and the horse dewormer there at the moment, but like if you're taking cocaine at the moment, like you run the risk of taking other sorts of dewormers, veterinary drugs that you wouldn't normally put into your body, you know. So why would you unknowingly want to be doing it either? So it's a big problem, and it can only be solved with regulation, and that's it. So yeah, Vancouver definitely, the activists over there have the right way of thinking. At least I would love to be able to replicate that. If I had access to the facilities here, I would have no problem going down, setting up there, and I don't know, where would you go down to some of the problem drug areas in the city anyway. I won't go naming any places in case people get offended out there. But imagine going down to one of the streets there in Cork where you know that there's people down there who have addictions to heroin, and to be able to give them a safe drug supply and a free drug supply as well, which is incredibly important, because a lot of these people will engage in criminal behavior in order just to get access to their drug, you know. Never mind about food. They don't even care about food. Like a lot of them just go robbing in order to supply their to continue with their drug habit. And it's because they're sick. Like if a person's sick, you have a medical card, you go in and get your prescription, and you get looked after. But if you're sick, if you're a drug addict, then it's like no, you gotta go rob people on the street and be a nuisance in society, in order to look after yourself. And that's the backwards approach we have under prohibition. GYDT found samples where cocaine was being sold, marketed as meth. I'm sure the opposite happens too. Yeah. No one's, I mean, because even the Cannabis World, like I got a message there the other day from a guy saying that there was contaminated cannabis products going around the city. There was people selling the shatter and vape carts in Cork City at the moment, and they're spice. It's not good. The guy who got on to me said a buddy of his got some shatter, and he had a bad time, ended up getting severe headaches and vomiting and everything like that, and he wasn't really pulling a whitey. And it turned out it was actually spice within the extract that he had there. So be wide, guys. Be wide. There's guys out there now like that. You see, like the live resin and the different CBD extracts, and guys are just literally just putting a bit of spice now onto that stuff and trying to bang that off as top quality THC shatter, like, you know. Yeah, GYDT, get your drugs tested. Nice one, Mustawa. Is appreciate that. I was trying to think of what that was. Get your drugs tested. That's a group there in Canada, and yeah, that's who found the samples of cocaine were being sold and marketed as meth. Yeah, and Podge putting up there as well that 0.001 grams of pure fentanyl can kill you. So that's how potent fentanyl is. Void. Again, if you think about what these guys are talking about, they're talking about the decriminalisation of the drug user, but absent from that conversation, like, again, is, and I have to point it out, is the fact that like they're not talking about the drug supply and taking care of the drug user after you decriminalise them. It's like, no, we won't talk about that. There's too much nuance there. But it's like, no, this needs to be talked about. These two things need to be tackled together in order to reduce harms. Because otherwise, like, you decriminalise the cannabis or cocaine, and then sure the hutches again, and it's like something delighted, like, yes, they can facilitate low level drug dealing much more safely now on the streets of Ireland because of the decriminalisation of the drug user. Decriminalising certain quantities of drugs just facilitates that low level drug dealing. And you're missing again the opportunity to help these drug users, to take them out of the hands of the organized crime gangs who do so much harm in our society. Like, I just don't get it that the conversation is always absent of that. Like, I'm just going to pop it up on a screen here now, Fee. Some of the dispensaries over in the US, like, why would we not want to be going into one of these places? Like, I'm not too sure who this guy actually is. Golden Days, shout out to Golden Days. He got 35,000 subscribers over there, so he doesn't need much shout outs. But this was just the first video that popped up here. But this guy's going in doing his tour of the dispensary inside. So he's a little flashy video talking to the lady. So, like, isn't this like kind of what you want? Like, so this lady there is ensuring that the guy is of age. And look, he's like, okay, you showed us your ID. Come on through now. You know what I mean? You're not a little kid. And it's like, come on through and I'll tell you all about the products we have in here. You know, they got labels on them. They're indicating the quality, the strength. And not only that, all of these people here, they're employees getting paid a decent wage. Their wages then also have an income tax, which is contributing to the government, to the running of society. You know? But no, we want to continue with keeping this all prohibited. Like, look at this place, like, just educated, consenting adults going in and buying cannabis. You know that the sky isn't falling. What's the problem? Why can't we have this here in Ireland? Oh, it makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But yeah, I wish we could be over there smelling all of the good stuff inside in that place right now. Zapakami, bit like that stuff called Pow Pow. That thing has like rat poison in it and is mixed with about 10 other things. Disgusting. Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Like, definitely don't want to be playing that. It's like playing Russian roulette, like, you know. Yeah, I see that. They're hype as well. Nice uniform. Billy Bonds, safe drug supply is paramount to user safety. 100% agree with you there, Billy Bonds. I'm just letting this video play away there in the background, guys, just as I read through your comments, just so you don't get too bored of the silence. Cami says, got a guy down the road from me who sells CBD flower as THC, but he's an idiot. Yeah, but Cami, there's many of those people out there, like, pulling that one off. And if you think about the turnover there, like, if they just go and buy in a bulk order CBD flower, like, they would get it for as little as €1 a gram if they're buying enough. But let's say they're getting it at €2 a gram, and then you go onto the streets and you're selling that at €20 a gram. You being like freaking idiot if you're a criminal not to be doing that. Like, it's easier. Like, and if you get caught with it then by the cops, or you can always just say, "Come here, boy, that's only CBD." But yeah, like, there's idiots out there doing that. Like, well, they're not really idiots. They're just scumbags, man. They're taking advantage of people and ripping them off. Like, he's a smart guy in what he's doing, but he's a fucking scumbag too at the same time. And Podge says, I've seen a load of guys doing that as well before with Cali bags, and it's only CBD. Yeah. I put up an article there the other day, actually. We'll pop it up on screen there, will we? Or we leave yeah, we'll pop it up on screen in a second. But I mentioned in Cork at the moment there is Cali for sale. And do you know how much it is, guys? It's going for like over €37 a gram. Like, that's how much they're trying to sell it for, €37 a gram. But that was coming in from like, and people are getting it and they're happy with it too. Like, the guy's getting feedback there from the sale of the stuff, and they're quite happy. So I just wouldn't have that money. I would not be handing over. It was €130 for one 3.5 gram bag. Not a hope. Like, I just couldn't afford it. Like, maybe if I was earning like 4 figures weekly, I would consider it, but like, seriously, no way. Like, that's crazy. I'm just looking there now for it. I'll pop it up on screen there for you to see it then. Yeah, after I put that article up, then the guy in question got in touch, and he's like, "Come here, my guy is fucking he thinks you think it's fake. He thinks you think I'm selling fake Cali, so he's going to give you a bag, but you can test it out so you know it's not fake." I was like, decent, happy days. So this was the article there that was up on this there the other day. I'm just going to pause this video there in the background. But this was the article, Gardaí responding to the man who had a heart attack, who later returned and raided his house. And some lovely plants there. Buddy of mine grew those. Not the actual plants that were taken from the house. But this was the post that went up there on Snapchat from the Dank of Shannon. And Dank of Shannon had a levels and a naughty one. So those are the two Cali strains. And they're going for $130 a pop. Or you get, if you buy 2 packets, you get them for $250, so $125 each. I think that's slightly down, you know, but still, you know, it's still a crazy price to be paying. 30, like over €30 a gram. That's nuts. The value of cannabis in Ireland should be like, it should be about €5 a gram. That's a decent price for your crop, in fairness. Like, and the farmer would be quite happy for that. I know over in America, like you're getting, is it like kilos? Like you get a kilo for about like is it $1,000 or something? Over here in Ireland, like you're getting like freaking crazy money for it, like. Yeah, Danke Shannon has actually been extra sound and is throwing in some what were the Calypsos? So lovely Calypsos. He was throwing in a drink there if you bought a pack off him. Those are lovely drinks, in fairness. Like those Calypsos, tasty out, real great. Cotton mouth quenchers. Shout out to the Candy Plug here in Cork, who supplies those. But yeah, as you see in the photo here on the right, like he sold out of his Cali. Like Danke Shannon sold out of the Cali. I think he had 10 packs. But like crazy. Like people are buying it. Like I know it's a rip off. I see Billy Bond saying it there. It's a rip off. Like, but I know I agree with you. I think it's nuts. But there's people paying it, like, and it's mad. Yes, Deep Pete, what's happening? Deep Pete is 3 words for us, guys. So perk up your ears and pay attention. He says, 5 times Tenerife. Roland Spanibus. So, yes, nice one. I look forward to that one as well. I've plans there to get over to Spanibus next year, so that should be good fun. Bacami. Let's go back over. I'm going to get back up. And the ladies there in the grow room. Or in the grow room, in the dispensary. Yeah, it's €30 a gram in places because of lack of supply. Grow your own, guys, and you should never have an issue with supply. Literally, just grow your own. Get a light, get a tent in the corner, and don't look back. And yeah, Podge saying it there as well. Because otherwise, like, you run the risk of just being taken advantage of and ripped off out there, like many other people are. Yeah, more money than sense, Billy Bond saying. Agree with you there, Billy. A lot of people, as I say, like if I was making 4 figures, then I would probably be one of those people who had more money than sense. But sadly, I'm not. And yeah, not everyone is in a position to grow their own. Becoming homeless is a big deterrent. Yeah, I'm there with you, DP. I'm one of those people, you know, because of how public I am out there. I just can't run the risk of it. I expose myself enough. So, thankfully, I've a buddy who we've got a agreement there, and yeah, we look after each other. And I encourage other people to do that as well. You know, if you can't grow your own, maybe one of your buddies can, and just come to a bit of an agreement. Look after each other. If one person grows 4 plants, it's more than enough for 2 people. If they're good at it, you know. Yeah, DP, that squidgy is melon hash. It's all right, not a patch and super pollen. Oh man, it's been a while since I've seen any nice squidgy or hash. Even though the stuff I got off of King Crop was quite nice. That was hash that I got that time. But yeah, it's been a while since seeing some nice squidgy. Oh shit, Bikami, that's a shitty situation to be in. Bikami saying that he doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know too many people here in Ireland, to get stuff from, unfortunately. And the two people that he did know are absolute scammers. That's an unfortunate situation. I'll never forget a day in a long day, a long time ago. We were kind of stuck, and we got onto this guy. He was like, "Oh yeah, you got a bag? Yeah, you have a bag down there." But he goes, "It's a bit small." He's like, "It's 3 grams and all right, like, but it's a bit small." It was 50 quid, and it was me and my cousin at the time, so we said, "Fuck it, we go halves in it." Like, we got down there, and it was all grinded up, and it was squashed into a tiny like Lacoste bag. And there was definitely no more than 2 grams in it. Like, nearly wanted to pull your man out the front door. Like, can we come here? Like, you serious? Uh, yeah, there's some shitty scammers out there who just take a complete advantage of the situation and rip people off every opportunity they get. There we go. Nice one there again to Golden Days for that tour of the cannabis dispensary over there. Um, In other news out there, guys, just to bring to your attention on the blog, also, got a new post up there earlier, which had this little image attached to it, and I just chose the image there of Granny Sylvester, to represent the image of Claire Freeman, who got 60 days in prison because of 2.5 grams of cannabis. And I compare her against the GAA, machete wielding lunatic, who threatened a lady because of some dispute due to a puppy. Um, I put him in there as Jason. I couldn't find any images of the guy. I really did try, in fairness. Like, apparently he's well liked, local GA lad. But in fairness, like, I couldn't find nothing up there of him. But do you know what I did find? So above there in Leash, up there in this area, there's a lot of Kavanaghs on the GA panels up there. Like, there was people within the committees, different roles in the committees, and then different players as well, and coming from long families there as well. So, and if you don't know about GA and hurling and stuff like that here in Ireland, like, if you're in a GA club, then basically there's a strong attachment. A lot of the times, the J clubs in Gardaí, and there's a lot of guards who get in there. So you have to wonder what connections, what real connections this guy had, because he was up in some serious charges before. He had previous drug charges, and he had one charge there, as I said, for threatening a woman with a machete in relation to a dispute to a puppy. you know, he got a 6 month suspended sentence. The lady who had 2.5 grams of cannabis for treating her pain got 60 days. Messed up one, really, isn't it? Like, so yeah, Ireland's court system more capable of showing sympathy to a machete wielding GA lad who threatens women, than to patients who medicate with cannabis. Backwards, like, never thought really you'd be writing or reading a headline like that. Right, we get through the last few comments there, guys, and we'll start signing off there in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Bikami says, I'm Hunter K on Twitter. Nice one for that. I'll find you there later on. Oh, Hunter, actually. Yeah, I know Hunter K. You're doing the daily walks for Bring Alicia Home. Yeah, as soon as I just read Hunter there, that popped into my head, actually. Fair play, Hunter. Well done. Or Bikami. Really appreciate that support there for the Bring Alicia Home campaign. Guys, if you haven't seen that, like, Bikami is on Twitter as an account known as Hunter, and he's been taking part in daily walks for Alicia. And again, I don't know if you're here. Yeah, he. You just said he there, sure. I get a special package from an unknown destination once a week at the moment, so we're all good for now. Happy days, good to hear. Long may that continue anyway, Bikami. And Podge says, yeah, know that feeling myself from people in town abusing the price. And Serenable says, and if you can't grow it, then you're effed. All hope is not lost. If you can't grow it, then maybe one of your friends might be able to do it, and you might be able to come to an agreement of some sort, like, you know, pay half his rent or something. Oh, DP got ripped off by a 15-year-old in Marbella over a decade ago. I'm still looking for the effort. Yeah, that's it. It's a sore one. It's hard to forget, really, isn't it, when you get ripped off? DP says, may I recommend the cannabis cafes in Tenerife? I'm just back. Different world. By all means, DP, give us your top 3 if you manage to get to that many of them. Like, and yeah, tell us all about them. Billy Bonds, cannabis users are persecuted daily and dealers showing no compassion. Well, like, do we, like, is it expected of dealers to be compassionate? Like, these guys, after all, are criminals. Like, you know, and at the same time, I will put my hand up and say, like, not all drug dealers are bad people. Again, you have to think about it. It's a funny one. Like, you're expecting a drug dealer to have morals. It's like the guy who's already breaking the law. It's like, sometimes, like, you know, could be problematic. Like, yeah, Mr. Always awesome. I've seen the posts are being seen by a fair few people, which is good. Hopefully, going for a walk soon if the weather is all right. Nice, happy days. Yeah, I see the weather is okay out there at the moment. I was only out there walking earlier myself with the dogs. Beautiful evening. Dealers are your community also. Yeah, that's a very valid point as well. Because I would always bring that up, you know, that a dealer within a community is often, you know, valued out there, and people don't give them up. So when the cops come in and the cops are trying to take this person out of the community, then the community aren't going to just hand that person over. They want them to remain because that person is part of the community. They provide, you know, a service in that community. So yeah, dealers are very much part of the community, all right. Hey, what's happening? Green tea. Green tea's after coming. Let's blaze one up. Hopefully you got the bowl packed out there, green tea. We're just gonna hang around there for about another 3 or 4 more minutes there. Just read a few more comments, and we'll blaze up this bowl as well, and we'll say goodnight. But you can go back if you want. The Green, sorry, not the Green Party, the Labour Party had their talk tonight on the decriminalisation of the drug user, and that's why I'm live this evening. I restreamed that on YouTube and Twitch. I didn't bother streaming it on Facebook as they were already streaming it on Facebook. I just done it on YouTube and Twitch for people who don't have Facebook accounts, but also just to keep account to this stuff as well. So that's why we're on here this evening. The Labour Party had a talk about the decriminalisation of the drug user. Let's blaze one up in support of the decriminalisation of the drug user. Civil disobedience protest. 24-hour tolerance break is killing me. I definitely don't envy it anyway, DP. Tolerance breaks, though, they're great fun. Definitely great fun breaking tolerance breaks. Green Tea says, I used to go out to lunch with my dealer, and everywhere we went, people would be hanging out car windows, having him beeping at her. or is that waving, I'd say. Waving and beeping at her. And it's funny you say at her, so your drug dealer was a lady. They're definitely few and far between out there. So I'd imagine that's why she gets a lot of her respect. Fair play to her. Right, we're going to close down the hotline there as well, guys, just in case anybody else tries to ring in, because I will have to get off there shortly. Boom, hotline is closed. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Mustawa is there as well, saying respect, Pete, can't be easy, distractions always help. Yeah, I always say exercise. Exercise is a great way, or just walking, getting out for a brisk walk. A great way to kind of just help with the tolerance breaks. Distracts the mind, just keeps you active and getting engaged in something. So you're not sitting around, tempted, in your usual haunts. What flavor are you smoking there, Martin? Hope it's decent. It's actually very flavoursome. In fairness, it was some Critical Kush I got there about a month ago. And it's just getting down to the last gram or two now in the jar, and the flavour is just absolutely magnificent. And green tea, yeah, her husband is lighting up. Shout out there to Mr. Green Tea. Hopefully you're having a nice evening there, and you're enjoying the herbs, lovely herbs I'd imagine they're grown by your beautiful partner. So well done, Green Tea. Green Tea says, yeah, about our drug dealer. Yeah, she was. God bless her. The woman are running the weed show up my neck of the woods. Nice. That's good to hear. In fairness, because you always, at least here in the city anyway, it's predominantly it's males, it's men, it's guys. Although I will put it out there, should I won't say her name, but before we used to be getting yokes, it used to be off a lady from a well-known family, in Clark, and she used to like sell the yolks out her front window. Like you go into her garden, knock at her front window, she come out the window, hand over like your 20-30 euro, depending on how many pills you were getting off her, and she just hand them over. I never went up to the window myself. That was always the guys who went up, but still a funny one in fairness. Kush, yeah, it was quite nice. Critical Kush. It was from Barney Seeds as well. I bought the seeds as a gift from my buddy, and yeah, he fucking did me proud. That was over like a year and a half ago. I got the guy the seeds. We got him regular ones as well, and he just had clones and stuff going since then. Um, Sadly, I think he put it to rest recently. He stopped running the line, so no more Critical Kush after this one. Unfortunately. Other nice flavors to come though, I've been assured. Right, so guys, we will start saying goodbye, will we? As it's nearing on. Yeah, it's getting late. Better go down and get ready to say goodnight to the kiddies and all of that stuff. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that one. I know a few of you, you felt like the talk, it was nothing but a lot of backpacking there for the the politicians involved, out there to buy votes. And I definitely don't disagree with you. I definitely would like to see more action, outside of just kind of promoting yourself. Like Dcrim, is it like I don't know. I don't know anyway, but yeah, there's definitely a lot more needs to be done there on that one from him. Anyway, more action. And Podge also saying that a lot of ladies down here in the southwest of Cork are dealers too. Interesting. No. And I am Toby says shotgun's a savage strain from Royal Queen Seeds. Nice. I've never actually tasted anything myself from Royal Queen Seeds, or seen or heard of anybody growing it, but you're a first there now, I am Toby, so I'll pass that recommendation along anyway, and who knows, maybe in a few months might have a bit of shotgun on here. Good night, Mustawis. Good night, Green Tea. Great being able to get on here and have a bit of banter with you too. Yeah, nice one. Not a bother at all, guys. Thanks for joining me. DP says grew tomatoes this year indoors, so it's a start at least. Good to hear, DP. Welcome. Great to hear another Green Thumb member out there. So welcome to the family. And Podge85 says night and hope you all have a lovely evening. Yep, night Podge. And it's night Billy Bonds as well. Cheers, yes, more action needed. He says nice one, Billy. Mr. Always says dry and Royal Queen seeds, Northern Lights auto at the moment. Nice, very nice. I've had some Northern Lights in the past, and quite a tasty strain in fairness. And yeah, good night, I am Toby. Right, so guys, I believe that is all of the goodbyes. Goodbye, Bakami, as well. I see Bakami just getting in the comment there. I hope you have a great night, Martin. Missed most of the stream, but caught the end. Was great. Good night, all. I actually, just to put a heads up, if anybody's going back to watch it, I missed the first 5 minutes of the stream, guys. So if you want to watch all of the Labour talk there, you have to watch it on Facebook. But if you want to go back and watch all of my stream, I missed about maybe the first 10-15 minutes of it. Kid duties, daddy duties, sorry. So yeah. Hey guys, I will see you tomorrow anyway, guys, for more 420 news. So have a lovely evening. Stay blazed out there, and we're lit. Click the wrong button. You can still see me. There we go. Bye.